worldwide affairs have a place in your day, this is the place you will want to stay. The Ron Bobb-Semple International Podcast with your host, world-renowned voice of Garvey and global news commentator, Ron Bobb-Semple.
Greetings and welcome to the Ron Bobb-Semple International Podcast. We will be addressing global issues that impact our day-to-day lives. The awareness of mental health has been heightened recently when the number 2 ranked women's tennis champion Naomi Osaka withdrew from Wimbledon in London, and renowned athlete Simone Biles dropped out of some of the gymnastics events at the 2020 Olympics in Japan. Joining us on this third episode dealing with mental health is the Executive Director of the World Black Mental Health Organization, Denise Barrett-Hubbard. Greetings and welcome to the Ron Bobb-Semple International Podcast.
Greetings, Mr. Semple, and thank you so much for having me on today for this very important conversation.
You're very much welcome. Sister Denise, why did you decide that at this stage of your life, you would commit yourself to addressing the mental health crisis of others in our communities?
I think it's a very, very important conversation in this day. The age-old disparities in mental health treatment and the implicit biases that we've been experiencing among providers, as well as our own myths, to be quite honest. We have a long way to go in how we perceive mental illness. Not only the world at large, but particularly as Black people.
You yourself have been inspired by your own diagnosis, caregiver burnout, struggles with anxiety, depression, and discrimination. I leave it up to your discretion as to how much detail you would like to share with us about what you have experienced.
In terms of what I have experienced personally is misdiagnosis or no diagnosis whatsoever when it came to caregiving for my own mother. In fact, it was just a matter of a mere couple months before she actually passed away that I finally had the diagnosis that she was suffering from dementia, which I knew, but could not get a diagnosis. And this is for many reasons. In our communities, mental illness, quote unquote, madness is seen as taboo. We don't talk about it. It's something that's shameful. If somebody sees you coming from an appointment where you've gone to see a mental health practitioner or a psychiatrist, word might get around that you're suffering from a mental illness. And that's just something that we historically have covered up.
Tell us about this organization that you now spearhead.
Absolutely. World Black Mental Health Organization is an organization that it's one of these things that was born at my kitchen table, to be quite honest, out of a need. I saw a need not only in my own family and my community, but as I reached beyond the borders, others were experiencing mental health crisis as well. And that's where I thought, okay, enough. I had great communication with my own practitioners and psychiatrists, and I thought, I'm going to make a go at this. And hence it was born. So we are a global humanitarian and social justice agency as well, as our core work that we do is to manage a 24-hour crisis line. We have a text and talk as well, or you can email us. So there are a lot of options that we're offering to people coming in that may just want to talk or may have something even more severe going on. And in that case, we're able to put other resources together for them in the communities or the community which they're in to offer help.
How old is your organization?
Organization was started in 2019.
What kind of challenges have you been faced with since then?
Great question. The challenges that the organization has been faced in, I believe, have to do with the stigma. People are still afraid to pick up the phone and talk. I find that we are beginning to be really successful with the younger people. They're becoming more open and receptive to the idea of mental health crisis counseling, especially in their spaces where bullying may be an issue, depression, loss of loved ones, grief. especially during the past, let's say, year and a half, 2 years dealing with the pandemic. We've had a lot of grief, and there are a lot of young people that are not used to dealing with this magnitude of grief. So we're there to offer counseling, grief counseling as well, to anybody that calls or texts. And again, that's 24 hours a day.
One of the yes, go ahead, please.
I was just about to say, we also make it available. If you speak French, we speak French. We have counselors that are available in your language, and we work very hard and diligently to keep that available to people that are calling in.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
One of the organization's slogans is putting an end to the Black mental health pandemic and getting, quote unquote, I can't breathe out of our DNA. Could you break that down for us, please?
Yes. And so this was very personal for me. And again, I extended it because I believed I wasn't the only one feeling this way. After George Floyd, there were moments when I felt breathless. And as I spoke to some colleagues, friends, family even, I had a sense that they were feeling breathless as well at times. And having something like this play out in the media, you're seeing somebody take their last breath. I mean, it doesn't get any worse than that. Add to that the pandemic, add to that social distancing, add to that the social spaces that we can no longer occupy because of COVID-19, i.e. barbershops, beauty salons, churches. Our social supports were no longer there. And so that getting that I can't breathe out of our DNA was speaking directly to that. That was it.
Mental health is a pervasive global concern. Nearly 1 in 10 people worldwide suffer from some kind of mental health. How would you categorize bipolar disorder as being associated with this disease? After all, statistics show that this disorder affects about 45 million people globally.
Mm-hmm. Well, I believe that bipolar disorder is something that we can say nearly everybody is experiencing right now as a result of a global pandemic. And as a result, again, of witnessing through the media all of the injustices. And so it is a moment for pause. It is a moment for deep reflection. And it is a moment to get balance, reach out for help. If you're not feeling well, you're not feeling like yourself, the least you could do is make a phone call, talk to someone. It could be a diagnosis, or it could just mean that you're having an episode, a panic attack even. And so I find with people of color, we are quite often misdiagnosed. And that's something else that we're addressing. Just culturally, we are different. And so without having that culturally sensitive, appropriate treatment and diagnosis, we're a lot of times left hanging and left behind with our mental health unaddressed.
Denise, are you saying that individuals may not be aware that they're suffering from bipolar disorder during these trying times of this pandemic?
Absolutely. We're all being taught to be resilient. That's the message that's being broadcast now. And I think culturally, our communities are resilient people. We've gone through tougher times and we'll get through this. There's been the Spanish flu, there's been other pandemics that have happened, and we got through this. So I'm concerned. I'm concerned that individuals, between resiliency and just knowing that, you know what, it's okay to not be that strong. If I'm not feeling strong today, it's okay. And to talk to somebody, it might be just that they need to take some time out to do some self-care.
Talking about one's mental health publicly helps?
Definitely. For myself personally, I have challenged a legacy of self-sacrifice and overgiving passed on to me from generations of women in my family. Women who did not necessarily talk about mental health or their feelings for that matter. And so I've learned through having a front row seat that this is very important. It's very important. If you're not feeling like yourself, if you're feeling a little down, you might be missing a loved one that passed away. Have a conversation. It's quite normal and it is okay.
We talked about bipolar disorder a couple of moments ago.
Yes.
What are some of the other disorders that fall under that umbrella?
We have schizophrenia, people that have anxiety and panic attacks. There's a whole wide range of mental health illnesses in addition to bipolar, in addition to schizophrenia, in addition to anxiety that people experience.
Being delusional could be one of them?
Delusions are definitely one of them. The other thing is that medications. People may be asked to take medications, or their psychiatrist may prescribe medications for something. And I didn't mention delusions because sometimes delusions, and I've experienced them myself, it could be just that you're overthinking, or it could be a mental health crisis. There's a difference. It could be that you're hungry, you haven't eaten, you need rest, and so you're having delusions. It could be that there's some trauma in your life that you need to talk through and you're having delusions. So it could be many things. And this is why I'm saying it's important to talk. Talk therapy is important. It's important to not be afraid to say what you're feeling, and to be accurately diagnosed. You need to be honest about what's happening and what you're feeling. Somebody, for example, that has experienced trauma and are having delusions may not be schizophrenic, but if you haven't been honest about your trauma, you may be misdiagnosed.
Denise Barrett-Hubbard, you are of Caribbean parentage. The Caribbean is particularly vulnerable to both natural and human-generated disasters.
Yes.
Could such occurrences result in the onset of mental problems such as depression, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder?
If I'm getting your question right, may you be referring to something like menticide?
Not necessarily. I'm talking about, for instance, like hurricanes, tsunamis, because the Caribbean region is susceptible to disasters
Yes.
such as
Well,
earthquakes.
I do believe we are experiencing, this is an era of peril for Black mental health. We are experiencing a mental health pandemic, and it's directly related to all of the social issues that have been arising in the last little while, whether it be through natural disasters or through COVID-19 and the social justice movement as well. So there is a pandemic. These things have directly affected people of color.
You are based in Canada.
Yes.
How much emphasis is being placed on addressing this health crisis there as compared to how the mental health system is underserved in the United States?
Wow. I believe that Canada, I am proud to say, has done a pretty good job when it comes to mental health. I myself am certified through the Canadian Mental Health Organization, and the outreach is incredible, I would say. We have significantly addressed especially Black mental health. There are a few organizations specifically that cater to Black mental health that I'm proud to say. And so at least 2 of them I know have been directly funded by the government, which is amazing. So I think all in all, Canada is doing a pretty good job. There's always room for improvement, but so far we've been doing a good job.
How are you subsidized?
I myself am self-funded, to be honest. This is an investment for the rent that I pay to occupy the space that I do on this planet. And so it's done out of love, to be quite honest. I have different funding campaigns where we do get donations. And so that's how we operate.
How is mental health dealt with by governments other than those in North America and the Caribbean?
The outer world, they have a myriad of ways that they are dealing with mental health. Mental health has not been recognized in many regions as being a real illness. And so people that suffer from mental illness have been suffering. There are disparities in how we treat somebody that may have cancer or how we treat somebody that may have a serious mental illness. And I think until we get to that place, until the World Health Organization steps in and really sees mental health as being a pandemic, we're going to have to keep working at it and keep petitioning, lobbying for mental health awareness, to break the stigma and for people to be more supportive of individuals that are suffering from mental health, a mental health crisis.
I read in an article that was published in the Lancet Global Health, the online magazine, about 3 years ago that, quote, mental health problems appear to be increasing in importance in Africa. Between 2000 and 2015, the continent's population grew by 49%, yet the number of years lost to disability as a result of mental and substance use disorders increased by 52%. How critical are those statistics?
The statistics are very critical because, it's showing you have live data as to what's happening. More importantly is how we are addressing what's happening. And again, I think we need to do a much better job. But at local levels, the pressure needs to be applied to the governments to recognize those statistics and to do something about it, just like we've done here in Canada. There was a huge push for mental health, huge advocacy from our members of parliament, and we were able to get it done that way. And I think that that's the way it needs to happen, is that constituents need to push their governments and lobby to bring attention.
Speaking of pushing, what kind of pushback did you get?
Wow, a lot. A lot. I mean, mental health is such a taboo subject. And then I put Black in front of it. Who does that? You know, it was already bad to be opening a Black business, but then you're going to put mental health with it. Are you sure this is what you want to do? And I have never been more sure of anything in my entire life. It needed to happen. The time is here. And I'm very proud of the work that I'm doing. And I'm very proud of people that are getting on board and the conversations that I'm having. And I'm learning a lot too. This is a teachable moment for all of us. I'm just embracing it all and learning a lot as well.
I am so glad and pleased that you raised that comment with having put Black in front of the mental health. When I asked you about the pushback, that's exactly where I was going.
Yeah, it's been difficult. I'm staying the course. I'm even proud that all my adverts and all the models that I use in my campaigns are all from the diaspora. And I'm very proud of that because they need work as well. And they need to expand their awareness of mental health.
And you have to be commended.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm honored.
Let's just go back to the continent for a moment and look at 5 of the challenges to mental health in Africa. Poverty, war and conflict, insufficient resources, because most African countries spend less than 1% of their budget on mental illness.
Yes.
Lack of awareness, as you just mentioned, and other diseases, HIV, AIDS, cholera, tuberculosis. What are a few of your recommendations, Denise, for educating parents about better ways to discipline children without causing trauma?
Well, I believe that any great life starts with an open mind, and we need collectively to open our minds. And there are ways to get your needs met without being violent. That's what war looks like at a very, large scale. And again, I know about that conversation, and I counsel young people that have been traumatized by the violence in their home or by being beaten by their parents. It affects their education, how they learn. And so we really have to sit down and pause and address the situation with families and with parents. And just, again, that happens through education. So we need to collectively continue to have these conversations, continue to educate. Think about it. What are the mental implications of beating my child this severely? How is it going to help? And maybe it's that parent that needs the counseling. They could have some anger issues, but they've never had anger management or anger counseling. And so once we examine where this is coming from holistically, we're able to create, treatment plans for people that don't necessarily involve drugs, but talk therapy and other natural ways that we're accustomed to healing ourselves.
A little earlier in our chat, you mentioned that more young people are reaching out to our organization.
Absolutely. I'm so excited about that.
Can you give us an example of one of those sessions, please?
Absolutely. A young lady wrote me a poem recently, and it was speaking to the despair and hopelessness that she was feeling. There not being any jobs, being in lockdown. I think she had probably some relationship issues as well. I want to talk about the narratives that we carry around as Caribbean people. I think what I showed her is a higher vision, or the higher vision that I had for her life. I saw so much potential. I saw her creativity. It didn't matter how she was dressed or anything like that. And I want us to be very careful of our conversations and the things we say to our young people. It could make them and it could break them. Yep. For example, I have 3 kids coming in and they're going into their parents after school. One says, "Hi, Tom, how you doing? How was your day?" The next one said, "Oh, there's dinner on the stove," or whatever. And then the Caribbean says, "Look at your condition." That's just one example. And that's something that I got from children, showed me. This is what we go through.
What was your immediate response?
My immediate response was, I am so sorry that you've been through that or that you had to go through that. And then you offer compassion, you offer love, because a lot of it is the absence of love. And it shows in our conversations how we communicate with our children, and they pick that up. And that causes, issues with self-esteem and all sorts of other issues just by how you speak to them.
Communication.
Communication. Simple. 3 words. Look at your condition versus dinner's there. How was your day? Look at your condition.
Wow. It was reported in Esquire magazine that actor Michael B. Jordan needed therapy after portraying the character Killmonger in the Black Panther movie. Killmonger was the quote-unquote villain who didn't stand with the structure. Even just pretending to be somebody who wants to escape, as the actor said, quote, I think just being in that kind of mind state caught up with me, unquote, could cause an individual mental anguish?
It can, it has, and it does. Absolutely. When you have to stand in a space where you have to stand for something that is not popular, or you feel compromised in any way, it affects your mental health. It affects the integrity. When you don't have integrity, your inner is not in integrity with what's happening on the outside, it'll make you sick. It'll make you sick for sure. And so I understand that.
What a lesson. The World Black Mental Health Organization serves as the only mindfulness-based global 24-hour mental crisis helpline, global humanitarian and social justice agency without borders, offering mental health support and education alongside documentation and data collection and a resource library. How can one connect with you and your services?
Absolutely. They can contact us through our website. There's a spot where you can email us, www.worldmentalhealth.com. You can talk, you can text, or you can call at 1-800-317-0747.
Repeat that number, please.
1-800-317-0747.
How much joy do you get out of what you're doing, Denise?
I wake up every day happy to do this. And it's like I am a part of a bouquet of humanity. And that's what I look to deliver every day, bouquets of humanity to my people.
Denise Barrett-Hubbard, who actively fights modern-day slavery and human trafficking, thank you very much for joining me on the Ron Bobb-Semple International Podcast.
Deep bow to you, Mr. Semple. Thank you very much.
You're very much welcome. Thank you for spending some time with us. If you are so inclined, you can subscribe to these podcasts and donate to them by clicking on the Support the Show button on the website. Please continue to protect yourself and your loved ones during this global pandemic by observing all protocols. Be safe, be strong, and be aware. I'm Ron Bobb-Semple.